F1 Super License is yet another very rare Formula 1 game that released for the Sega Mega Drive in the early 90s, but only found its way to Japan. So for many, a lot of us wouldn't even have known this game even existed. In saying that, however, there are a lot of Formula 1 games that did release on the console, but some of them only were released in the Japanese region, so up until recent times with emulation, most of us probably didn't even know about these games at all. The thing that's noticeable about this game is that it plays from a top-down point of view, and there are quite a few F1 games of this type that did release on the Mega Drive itself. We have a variety of different modes, tracks that are available, teams, drivers, and obviously the goal is to race through the F1 season to become the overall champion. There was another game that was released in and around a similar time, also by the same developers, with F1 Grand Prix, that has a very similar play style, but graphically it's more detailed, has more bright and vibrant graphics, although it's still equally as tricky and challenging to master, and this game is no different. The graphics here, while they are very good and colourful, in many ways feel like an earlier Master System or Game Gear game rather than a 16-bit game in a lot of ways. But that's not necessarily to say that it's a bad thing, but it has all of the typical elements, from pit stops to time trials, qualifying modes to see where you'll end up on the grid, and you'll have the main races themselves to try and capture points. It is tricky to master because everything happens so fast, and the collision detection can sometimes be a bit off, because if you do hit a barrier or wall, sometimes you can get stuck, which will completely destroy any little bit of progress that you're making. And the AI opponents as well can also be overly aggressive at times, especially further up the pack if you do manage to get into the first few places, as they will try to actively knock you off or try to block you off the track so that they can win themselves. What this game really does put you in mind of is if you were playing Micro Machines but with F1 cars in a lot of ways, but it just doesn't have the arcade feel, as it tries to go for a more serious approach, but it is very, very fast, so everything comes at you very, very quickly. You have to have your wits about you. There is no excuse, because if you're slow on the uptake, you're going to be off the road in an instant before you even really know what's going on. But there's a lot of games of this type that did release on the Mega Drive. Funny enough, yeah, they all have their own unique characteristics and quirks and quips and so forth. The trouble is with them is that I found from playing them over the years, or even recently with doing a lot of these videos, is that there's so many similarities. Apart from the visuals and some control tweaks, it's very hard to tell the difference between a lot of them, because they all play almost identical to each other in many ways. But still, if you're a collector, it is something worth looking into, especially if you're a fan of Formula 1, because in fairness, the Mega Drive does have quite a lot of Formula 1 titles that did release on the system over the years. While we may not have known about them years ago, at least now with emulation and the internet, we can get the chance to experience them at least for the first time, so you can see what you think for yourself. But it's an interesting game. It is fun in short bursts. Tricky though, it is very, very difficult. I'm not going to lie, it is very difficult. But if you do like 16-bit racing games, well, there's no harm in giving this one a look. And if you'd like to see and learn more about other Formula 1 games that did release on the Mega Drive also, you can check out this next video.